Welcome to the Drinks Entrepreneur podcast. My name is Alex Macintyre. I'm a chartered financial planner working with founders and leaders across the drinks industry. In each episode, I sit down with the people behind some of the world's most exciting drinks brands to explore the real stories behind launching, building and scaling drinks businesses. If you love the drinks industry and the stories behind the bottles, you're in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode. Right, hello everybody. Welcome to the Drinks Entrepreneur podcast. I'm delighted today to be joined by John Logue from Chance Clean Cider. Hello, John.
Hey, Alex, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How's things with you?
Yeah, good. You can probably see there's a bit of sunshine, which as a cider producer is quite helpful in terms of our sales. But yeah, very good, thank you. Excited to have a chat with you guys.
Good. Well, great to meet you. And you're in Chester, I believe, today.
I am literally in the eyesight of the Chester Roman museum where lots of kids run by in a minute screaming dressed as Romans. So yeah, right in the middle of Chester. It's a beautiful spot.
And then show my age, not that I watch it anymore, but is that where they somewhere not too far away they film Hollyoaks?
Do you know what? When I used to live in a place called Hambridge, which is the other side of the river, and you know the suspension bridge you see?
Yes.
I would walk over there every day. They film it in Liverpool, I believe.
Right.
But where I was based is, you see the odd Hollyoaks person about. But many a morning on a Sunday, I would watch a bit of Hollyoaks while living not too far away from Hollyoaks. Yeah,
definitely, absolutely, great stuff. Great. So so obviously delighted to have you on, and so we'll talk about the good stuff in a while, and enjoy a lovely glass of Chance. But yeah, if you'd like to start, John, by obviously telling all the listeners and viewers a little bit about your journey pre-starting the company, where you've come from, your journey to date, essentially.
Yeah, so I mean, if you jump over the education and the university degree, which I obviously don't use at all, my parents told me to get a proper job, and my final kind of hurrah before that was I went to my friend's wedding in Australia and came back with the kind of view of I want to work in Australia, and started researching companies that could get me to Australia. So I landed upon Diageo because they had Bushmills and Guinness, and I liked both of them. And I spent 7 years there. The final year working through all sorts of sales functions was in Australia. So I blagged my way to the Australian office and did a year out there, which was amazing. And along the route, I met the founders of a company called Chili Marketing, which are the people that took Record League cider around the world. So I ended up playing music, and that's another long story, for them at Taste Sydney, got to know them, and basically left Diageo and joined Chili Marketing as their customer marketing manager. So there was I always say there was 3.5 people there, because one of the girls who worked there didn't do loads at the beginning. And I was part of the team that saw Record League go from about 40,000 cases to nearly 2 million cases, 27% of cider over there. It was like a perfect storm, right? You know, Swedish brand hit the Australian market at a really good time where it's a long story, but RTDs were being heavily taxed, so people wanted this kind of sweeter, this alternative to beer. It's obviously sunny there, and Recorder League just erupted. And at the same time in the UK, it was doing the same thing with Copperberg and those guys way before Strongbow Fruits and all that. And so I spent 5 years with them and was part of the teams that launched it around the world. So I learned loads about sort of category development and cider, obviously, and founder-led businesses, and just had the best time with 3 lads who are just amazing, and all those other guys. So Chris, Key and Gaz changed my life, definitely. Came back to the UK, and the opportunity was to go back to Australia, which wasn't right for us because my wife was having our first child. So some naughty boys up in Scotland had contacted me a couple of times, and I went to work for Brewdog as head of customer marketing there. So did 3 years there, worked on loads of amazing projects as head of customer marketing. And one of them was the development of the AF project, which was Punk AF, Hazy Jane AF, all that kind of stuff.
Right, gosh.
So left there, for another day. How we left there, we all leave there in interesting ways. And I joined another company called Atom Brands, and they were a founder-led company that had just been sold to ABI. So again, Master of Malt, Bathtub Gin, lots of cool brands, founder-led, and was plugging in as the head of marketing there into lots of different projects. But one of them was getting their beer boys and girls to start selling spirits, of which Bathtub Gin. So again, brilliant excitement, kind of understanding all that. Left there after lockdown and became the head of marketing at Lucky Saint. Which obviously isn't the worst place to learn when you want to launch your own brand. And after leaving Lucky Saint, which was amazing, there was like 9 people when I was there, not the 90 that are there and the 20 million pound business it is now.
Yes.
And Emma and Luke learned so much from them and basically went into consultancy. And I started being a consultant for founders, working with Distill Ventures, which is Diageo's, sadly, no more, in innovation department. Worked with Crossip and High Point and Hoax non-alc beer, and basically just started to one day go, oh, seems like I'm an expert in non-alc. And I was working with founders at that stage where they get a bit of money and they can afford to stop doing everything. Yes. And I would come in and either help them pivot into something, so maybe from e-commerce into on-premise, or launch or rebrand. And one of my investors just sort of went, or friend, now investor, Matt, just went, you must have an idea, mate. And I was like, well, maybe. So it was just that kind of bit of turning the camera on myself and going, right, well, instead of me helping someone execute their dream, what's the thing I can do? And yeah, Chance came from a Tuesday night, as all great ideas do. having Guinness Zero, having Punk, having Lucky Saint, having Mash Gang, having We Can Be Friends, having Seedlip, having Crossip, having everything apart from a non-alc apple cider for that non-alc occasion.
Yes.
And then you go, where are they? So I started looking, and just as a customer marketing expert, which is what I am, I'm not really head of marketing, I'm more of a customer marketing expert. I just like this is ridiculous. 80% of cider is apple. You go look at your co-op, look at your Tesco, look at your pub. They will have a non-alc beer, maybe 2 now with craft coming through. They might have a cider, but it'll be flavored cider. Recorded non-alc is something I worked on, so part of my fault. And you're going, well, if only 20% of the market is being given, a solution, what's the 80%? So 80% of cider is that 12 million house molds, 16 million consumers. 50% of cider consumption is by millennials and Gen X. So this is like the most on-trend category, £2 billion category, second biggest category in the country. We've been making cider since the Romans. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, who the hell is going to make an on-alc cider? And took it upon myself. And here we are. That was the beginning. And I'm sure we'll talk about the rest of it. But yeah, 20 years in the industry, and then just finding myself thinking, I don't want to be that guy in the pub who goes, oh, I have an idea, I'm going to do it next year. Yes. I was like, well, I may as well, classic, take the chance. And that's where it came from.
Fantastic. I mean, there's reeling off your previous experiences in history. I think, you've covered every potential category and angle of all the well-known alcoholic-free brands there are. So,
I was a footballer. They called me a journeyman because I've been around all the leagues.
That's a polite phrase, yeah. But absolutely, and within that, again, all those various insights into those different companies, and you're not just joining well-developed brands at a time. You were there at the outset of a lot of those to see the whole experience. Rather than saying, well, I joined. We're just joking before we start recording. That as we're recording early March, BrewDog hasn't been in the news at all recently. There's been no inches in the press about them recently. But if you'd have joined them quite late in the day, that's a different story. And obviously, right at the start of Punk, and things like Lucky Saints, which I think is one of the few from personal experience and preference, that if you see it, obviously, it's in a bottle, but actually it's one of the nice things you see if you're in a bar and if they've got it on drafts, it does make the difference. And like you say, actually, speaking, preaching to the converted, as they say, but and it's right, and I can see the preference of the millennials and Gen Z, etc. Can't always remember the different titles for them all. As they've changed, but as you said, cider is a massive category, and you think actually logically, you think there isn't or wasn't. So I'll correct myself. A well-known brand that was non-alcoholic, that was just effectively keeping it simple, and dedicated to that, and so fantastic. So
I was going to say, sorry, that's one of the key definitions that we talk about. There's kind of 2 stages in non-alc, but there's lots of stages in things. But you have the first range extension. So you've got Heineken 0.0, Peroni 0.0, Stella 0.0. I'm sure that's coming. But what that is it's a category development. It's an opportunity for them to do the diet version. The second part of when consumers really buy into it, customers buy into it, and the category grows and the confidence is there, people look for brands which are dedicated, that just make it for that, for the culture, for the reason. So Lucky Saint came out and said, we don't make a full fat Lucky Saint. It's like, no, we just make a non-alc. And that's where we're at with cider. There are quite a few of that first generation of Thatchers and Orchard Red and the likes of Magnus and Bulmers a little bit, and Galopette and those guys who have a range extension. But our position is going, no, we just make a non-alc cider because we want to make the best one. And it's not that it's different. It's just we have a style, and our style is a lower ABV. And to be breaking that ground in cider is super thrilling and feels as exciting as when I was with Recordelig, when flavoured cider was becoming bigger than pear cider. And when you're in the Brewdog meetings and you're going, oh, we'd love to have like one IPA on tap because there's 7 lagers. Walk into your average bar now, look at Tesco when it had 3 SKUs and now it's got 3 meters. Like, being on those cusps of change, of cultural change, is really exciting.
Absolutely. So this particular Tuesday evening that you had the idea, when was that roughly? How long ago did that?
It's got to be sort of 3.5 years ago that those conversations, and then you start to kind of, there's 3 things you obviously have to formulate your life plan. Like, have you got the time to do it? Have you got the space to do it? You then have to work out how you're going to do it, because we have a production partner with Aston Manor who make our cider with us. So, if you are a founder and you're going, I've got this idea and it's in the garage, we're at the stage of going, well, I have to get someone to make it, but also have to make it how I want them to make it. So there's rounds of innovation. And then you've got that final bit, which is what they never teach you in founder school, which is like, how do you get the money to do it? Finding investment, finding investors, understanding about EIS and SEIS and boards and cap tables and all that. Like, it comes at you pretty quickly. But right at the beginning, you're just kind of going, can I find 3 hours a week to sit down and think of a name and ring my mate who might be able to design an initial pack? And can I put together a deck? And have I got the £36 to buy the domain name? All that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All of that in the background.
Things like that, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. So remind, where were you at the time? What were you doing? What was the day job?
I was a consultant. Very luckily, one of my children, Wilbur, was quite young, and I was working 4 days a week. So I would work basically a Wednesday afternoon off and a Friday morning off. And the Friday morning was for Wilbur to hang out with him. And then Wednesday afternoon was to push this idea forward. And it didn't get pushed forward a lot. There was a lot of mucking around and watching TV. But I was lucky that I had that flexibility to have that kind of just switch off from the day job and go, okay, well, I'm going to think about this. And that was where a lot of the kind of initial forging of the plan came. Because if you've got a full-time job and you're really passionate about it, having the time to switch off in the evening and do that and not have the downtime, it's tricky. And then you come to the weekends as a father, and to commit. So I'm very fortunate that I was in a position to have a little bit of headspace to do it. But also, look, I was working in non-alc, so it wasn't like I was a bus driver and then trying to work out how to make sausages.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Wasn't a complete sort of jumping into the unknown, the abyss. So what came first in terms of your thought process? You had the idea. Was it let's source the product or the apples, the orchard, the manufacturing of it, or the name? What?
It was, look, it was absolutely the occasion. It was going, I want to have, I'm awfully prepared here, I don't have one, but I wanted to have a 330ml bottle that could hold in your hand and drink cider from. And that was because I believed that was the occasion that was underserved. Yes, like that.
Yeah.
So not decanting it out of a 500ml bottle, not loads of ice, just going, right, this is kind of like a beer, a premium beer looking brand.
Definitely.
And that was part of because of the occasion, but also I realized from a commercial and category point of view, I didn't want something that was awkward to put in. So I thought, make it a 12-pack like Lucky Saint, make it the same size as in like footprint as Lucky Saint, similar price point as Lucky Saint. So then when you go in, you go, right, well, how many cases of Lucky Saint we do? We do about 8 a month. You go, well, surely you can do 2 cider, right? Okay, yeah, but it doesn't fit in. Well, it does fit. So it was all about the structure of it initially and the thinking, the occasion. The name came quite early on because I wanted something that would be a bar call and would, as a marketeer, give you a lot of inspiration. So taking chances, and this is your chance. And there's like the brand name, and then there's the founder name, which is obviously I'm the person who took the chance. It's all very cheesy, but it's all important. And then I spent a good 6 months with a cider producer friend who I used to know he was a consultant for a big cider brand that used to be owned by a big Scottish brewery that don't exist anymore. And we went down to Herefordshire and we hung out with lots of cider makers and we talked about the style of the cider. And unfortunately, we just couldn't get someone to make the cider down there. It's quite an expensive process to remove alcohol in the different ways you do it. But I started to really zone in on the idea. And then next week we're at the Northern Bar Show, actually, the Northern Bar and Restaurant Show in Manchester. And it must have been 3 years ago-ish, I ran into the guys at Aston Manor. And to be honest, I was just chatting to get a free drink, because sometimes you have to do that at a trade show. And the lady, Alison, who's still my account manager, she gave me a card. And I'd had a really tough day of another knockback from a local producer saying they can make the cider. And this sounds like I'm making it up. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I'm a marketeer. I opened my drawer and I saw her card and I rang her and I went, Alison, you'll never remember me. And she went, oh, you're the guy who worked for Recordly. I said, oh yeah. I said, I've got this idea. And it turned out that at the time they were starting to look at non-alc production, because Aston Manor make all of the white label for like supermarkets and pub companies. So they don't have brands. They're a producer, as it were.
Yep.
And she went, look, can you jump on a call with my boss tomorrow? And it turned out that her boss knew my old boss, and they went, yeah, we'll put it through the MPD meeting to see whether, and basically they said, look, we'll give you 6 rounds of innovation and we'll give you 49 bottles. And I went, okay. And that was how it was. So a huge amount of serendipity, but also being a nice dude that day and chatting to that lady and then not thinking I was a weirdo. Came round. So again, like, it's been brilliant to have a partner like that who are able to make an incredible liquid and to make it at the level and depth of growth that I need. But also when you're talking to pub companies and supermarkets who probably also have products from them, the validation's great there. So we've never hidden the fact that we're made by Aston Manor. We're very proud of it. It's my liquid. But that, again, was one of those moments where it just kind of hit in, because if I had worked with a small producer and Prezzo ring up and say, we'd like to put you in 100 restaurants like they did, it's the different conversations go, I haven't got 5,000 litres. But, that's part of the experience that you kind of bring on along the way of being a founder and working with them versus, happening into these spaces sometimes.
So when the first bottles came off the production line, when was that roughly?
So the first bottles that arrived at my house were about 3 years ago, before Christmas, I remember. And we went through a couple of rounds of going, can we have it a bit more fizzy? Can we have it a bit drier? Can we do different things? Then when we found the actual liquid, we produced the liquid in August 2 years ago. So bad. Yeah, so it'll be 2 years this August. And it's funny that because of how we wanted it in because I wanted it in a 330 ml bottle, Aston Manor couldn't put it into that. They mostly put it into cans and kegs.
Okay.
Or bigger bottles. So I then had to ship it down the road. Obviously, people did it for me. I'm not in the back of my car. To our bottlers. And then the first time I tasted it was outside in the car park at about 9:20 in the morning.
Oh,
and
wow.
Because what happens is when you do innovation of liquids, it's normally done in a lab with a very small run. So it's never the same taste because it's not a big production run, and it's not a big they don't carbonate it the same way. So I remember sitting in my car. They gave me 20 cases, which were in the back of my family car. I had a case next to me. I literally opened it, and I remember just thinking, please, tastes good. And yeah, thank God it did. So that was. I have a TikTok. Of course, I have a TikTok, and I've tried to diarize all these moments. Maybe people watch it to see whether I fail. Maybe people watch it to see what it's like to be a founder. But like this, I think there's a lot of people out there that maybe want to see what founders do to be one. And maybe there's a lot of people that just think it's fun to watch founders. But yeah, that moment in the car, I just remember going, oh, wow, like this is a thing now. And obviously we've produced 100,000 bottles now, and we'll go into our fourth run, and we do draft and all these things. But yeah, that first, it wasn't like I knew it tasted great. It was still a chance that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a moment, isn't it? That's a successful moment to be recorded.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's 35,000 bottles that I don't know what to do with.
That would require more creative thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
But I guess the positive thing is that, let's say, on that note, is with a non-alcoholic brand, is you can taste it at 20:09 in the morning, and all is well.
Yeah.
I had on Friday last week a rum tasting at I think it's about 10:30 in the morning. So that was precluded being able to drive that afternoon. But I guess with yours again, you can. There's no worries about that. You can. It's there to be enjoyed.
My 84-year-old Irish dad loves it in the morning. He thinks it's
fantastic.
And whatever you want to do,
replaces
it's tea.
Less nicer tasting apple juice, isn't it? Yeah. It's much more refined. So that was obviously fantastic. You got the winning product. What happened then in terms of obviously going to market? How did that look?
Initially the plan was to kind of put it in 150 bars that we knew did well with non-alc beer and just sort of test it there. And that was kind of the plan. We had quite a lot of opportunity to we'd written off the stock in terms of we bought it. So we thought, right, well, I would say the royal we. I thought we'll just kind of put it out there. So the initial thing is I had a sales team in London that I'd worked with quite a lot who are called Core, which are a non-alc sales team. And then I said to them, you can look after the country apart from Cheshire, where I live, and Scotland, because I always knew I wanted to use a brand team up in Scotland. Okay. And also, whenever I work with founders, I always say, like, go out, sell your wares, look people in the eye, learn. Don't just sit there and not understand why things don't work. Yeah. So I ended up selling through Core in London. We had a little bit online that was doing okay. And then we had... in Chester, it was me just going, because I used to be a rep in Chester, just going around to all the old bars and going, oh, do you want to try this? And our first distribution was like the restaurant in my little village called Cornichon. And then we got into Chester Football Club. And then basically I had a relationship with a local brewer here called Wheatwood. And I'd rung them and said, oh, look, I knew a guy there. And I always said I'd let him try some. And I was like, oh, can I put a pallet of cider in your warehouse? And they were like, no, why? And I was like, well, my wife's going to go mad if I put a pallet of cider in her garage. So we ended up keeping on conversation. And then they came to me and said, look, we would like to distribute you. So suddenly in Cheshire, it stopped being me driving around to now we've got 130 active accounts in Cheshire, and from like Chester Racecourse to Chester Rugby Club to ICO to the Grosvenor, like all the really cool places which have come through there.
Yeah, definitely.
And then down in London, it started to build its kind of presence, and we got into some route to markets. And then we got very early on into a distributor called Breaks, which is a really interesting kind of tactic, because in the on-premise, you have like wet and dry. So basically, wet would be LWC, Matthew Clark, who sell booze. And then dry would be the people that sell your pasta and your lettuce and your toilet roll. So to get into Breaks was great, because Breaks can't sell booze or don't do a lot of it. So they were really interested early on as like a fun place to play. But they have about 80% coverage across the country, because pretty much everyone needs lettuce, pasta, toilet roll, things. So it was going quite well. And then at Christmas, we decided to, reluctantly from me, put us on Amazon. So it started to build. And then when we came into the new year, it was kind of building. We did a big giveaway online, and it kind of was building. And then one day I just got an email, and it said, hey, Preza would like to have authority to put you across their full estate. So then suddenly it's 100 restaurants, and then suddenly Breaks are like, oh, we like this guy, like he actually sells some cider. And then Amazon just started to become more and more of a thing. So in our first, we put 20 cases on and we sold it in 3 days. We're now the number one non-alc cider on Amazon. We're the 10th biggest cider on Amazon. We do 300-400 cases a month. So certain places have worked before we thought we would. And then the sales team in London, who still look after the bigger accounts, we then picked up a sales team in Central called Liquorman. And then we had Andy Me, who looks after non-alc space. And then Scotland, the guy he was like, look, mate, can I try your cider? And I was like, oh, look, I want to speak to you about it in year 2. And he was like, send it up now. So we have 200, 300 venues up in Scotland now, with listings in, the likes of King Tut's Wild Wild, but, Barrowlands, right through to Irish bars in Aberdeen. So again, it just kind of started growing organically. And then we were very lucky to meet the guys at Alcohol Change and had a really good conversation with them. They're the people that produce the Dry January campaign. So then we became an official partner with them, and then suddenly your awareness goes up, and then the supermarket starts to talk to you. And because again, and then toward the end of last year, when we've had all our big activations coming, we just thought, right, well, let's maybe start having some PR. And that's when it's really kind of gone a bit more wild with the Times and the Guardian and the Observer and Sunday Brunch and Drinks and all these kind of huge titles getting behind us, because along the way we've won 5 global awards, like silvers in the World Cider Awards, best overall cider in the London Cider, not best non-alc, best overall cider. So again, the kind of credentials and the momentum and the kudos. But I guess, like, I always sort of think, Alex, like, if you're a founder and I'm charging you a few £100 a day as a consultancy fee, if I don't do this well, like, I've got to go back and pay everyone back. So it's been this wonderful thing of the liquid's amazing. I've been able to lean on loads of great relationships, but also learn who's great at their jobs over the last 10, 20 years. To then be able to execute and work with brilliant people like Jen and Sally and Bradders and, Alex and the Gertie's team and all that. But then also, this is a founder podcast, right? Our investors have been so fortunate, because the first person who came, I'm not allowed to talk about him, but like our first investor is the vice president of one of the biggest drinks companies in the world. Nathan is the marketing director and partnerships director for Waitrose. Matt owns Monk London. I will forget others and I'll get told. But again, having this amazing investor group behind you who can not just add kudos and support, but also guidance and also validation, because when you are questioning yourself at 4 a.m. because you're running out of money, you do kind of go, well, if those guys believe in this. So I've been very fortunate to kind of be able to bring in a product and an opportunity and a sales team and relationships and investors to just kind of find myself on this rocket, which is panicking 90% of the time, but hanging on.
Absolutely. And in terms of, obviously, work backwards, obviously the proof's in the pudding, because it's done so well, and it's got the reach that it has, here and north of the border. Was it a surprise to you, or is that a silly question in terms of, you could see the potential of the market that you're operating in? So sort of separating it, obviously the product is fantastic, but actually, did you see the reach of it growing so, in such a, relatively short time frame, being so popular, or were you aware that it was, it was a true gap in the markets,
There's
and you feel
there's
the
two
volume?
answers to that. It depends which founder you're talking to. Is it the anxiety-ridden, complete imposter syndrome founder who thinks that surely someone else has got a non-outsider can do this, and surely someone's going to work out that and blagging us every day? Or you've got the guy who realizes from a customer marketing point of view that this is a
Yeah.
£2.5 billion category which has no service for a human, probably the biggest cultural change you will see in our lifetime, which is the growth of non-alc, not just sobriety, but where the majority of the drinking is, which is moderation. And you look at the beer category, which is 15% in Spain and 12% in Germany, and go, well, of course, this much of non-alc can be over here. And you look at, like you're saying, and you look at Guinness. Guinness sells more 0.0 on a card odor that does full fat. So you go,
Incredible. Yeah.
surely cider fans aren't two-headed. And then,
Yeah.
so there's a real kind of like, this obviously will work. And then you're like, but I don't know what I'm doing. And then sometimes you do have these moments where you go, okay, well, this is like, I was chatting to someone before, and we had on our info app, it was like, hey, just something like a code didn't work or something. You end up just going, you fix it because you were doing everything. Yep. And then I said, oh, mate, where did you see us? Because we'd just been on TV, and most people say, oh, we saw you on the brunch. And he said, oh, I saw you I was in an Irish bar in Aberdeen, and the bartender said, you've got to try this. And you're like, how are we in Aberdeen?
I mean, that's bonkers, isn't it?
Those moments think, okay, well, it does work. But 90% of the time, mate, you're just going, when's someone going to catch me?
Yeah, no. Well, it's obviously working, and like you say, it's just the reach you've got, and obviously you've had some fantastic PR and branding, and like you say, just that what's it called, the 6 degrees of separation. But yeah, just from a random bar in Aberdeen, which you think is oil and gas workers or whatever, and just someone recommending you, and there's the link complete there. But you can see, and they produce the figures of we're going back to the different generations, that obviously the current younger generation are not drinking the same percentages of alcohol that the older generations are. But yeah, you think the things like you wouldn't think 10 years ago that a Guinness Zero, and you just said the outcome there, that it's selling what it's selling, with a product that's hundreds of years old and it's got that history behind us. But it's a hugely growing demographic, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that when I first was dabbling in innovation for non-alc, people are just going, well, I'm not pregnant, I'm not driving, I'm not on antibiotics, so what's it going to work for? And actually what everyone missed was 90% of non-alc occasions include booze. So people are having 4 or 5 drinks, but maybe 4 of them or 3 of them are non-alc, and they're switching. It's called basically it's called moderated. It's called being a human, right? Not flexitarianism, it's just being a human. But we call it bookending or zebraing, all this kind of stuff. And that's been the big, I don't know if we can swear on here, the OS moment, because you're then going to a consumer, okay, well, you can still drink, but you can drink differently. So you still want to go to the pub, you still want to go to restaurants, you still want to watch a football match, you still want to go. But maybe you've got a little bit of an eye on tomorrow, or maybe you just have a bit more of an eye on the effect of alcohol. But then you, as you said, you've got this huge, huge influx of younger consumers that come in who have no relationship with getting drunk, no relationship with drinking, don't have that kind of historic upbringing that I had of on the park and going to Lorette de Mar when I was 18, and all the fun shenanigans you got up to. But I think back to my uni days, like the propensity of drinking in universities now is like inverted, right? 50% of them drink now. Whereas when I would go on a Wednesday and a Thursday and a Friday and a not so much the weekend, and then the Monday. So those whole cultural changes of how people are coming into the category, but still want to have communal moments together. Non-alc gives that solution. But then right at the other end, as you said, where the pub trade is struggling so much and restaurants are struggling so much, having a way for people to have a premium experience, to to have as tasty an experience in their drink, but just not have alcohol, because we can now remove alcohol and still let it taste as good. It makes sense. And I always talk about, like, if you go back a couple of generations, so as I said, 84-year-old Irish dad, legend, the amount that he drank when he was my age, and then you go back to my granddad Fred and what he drank, and then you go back another generation to like pre-war.
Yeah.
If you just look at one genre of dads, right? So you think about, I'm not saying my dad was a big drinker, but like the amount that I drink now, and then you go to my son Fox, and who's 10, and Wilbur, who's 7 in a few weeks, like they'll statistically never drink. So that movement isn't actually that long, but people still want to hang out. Football's still the number one watch TV. Tens of thousands of people still going to festivals. So having this option for them is just hitting this wonderful zeitgeist, a bit like we saw with meat. When people started to realize that you shouldn't eat as much meat.
Yeah.
And then they could have tofu and meat replacement. Suddenly, if I always think about, like, if you'd have gone back to your point back a few years, my first proper job, after being a glass collector with my brother, I worked at McDonald's, right?
Yep.
So 1997, when I worked in Chorley McDonald's, if you'd have said they're going to have a burger with no meat in, you'd go, yeah, probably, mate.
Yeah.
Or if you'd have gone to Starbucks or Costa and said, 50% of your drinks you sell won't have milk in, they'll have a nut milk, you'd be like,
yes. Yeah, good
probably,
point.
mate.
Yeah.
And now we're living in a world where 1 in 3 pub visits don't have alcohol. A quarter of, 1 in 4 UK consumers don't drink anymore. It's here. So we have to be thinking about how we can make sure that people will pick those pubs and those restaurants and those moments instead of just going down the road. Because if you don't have a good selection now, it's not emerging anymore. It's the category.
It's here, yeah. And like you say, there's something to be about the experience, whether it's premium as well, but also rather than days of old where there wasn't any alternatives, and it was if you were the designated driver or whatever, it was a Coke or a lemonade.
I used to pump a bit of Calibre about back in the day.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah. That was it. That was it. That was it. And it's ballooned, isn't it? And for the best. And if like you say, moderation. Even if you are on a night out and not driving or not got work the next day, you still might want to have the balance or alternate. It's the choice, isn't it?
And also, what I think is really important is the incredible sobriety movement of people who have a medical or have an addiction or have some form of reason not to drink anymore.
Yeah.
The stigma of that is absolutely not there anymore. You've got, Spider-Man, you've got the biggest actors in the world, the biggest musicians in the world now who say they don't drink anymore. No one's kind of going, what's wrong with you? Yeah. So that permission for people to feel comfortable to have a sober choice, whether it's because they need to or because they just want to, that's another incredibly exciting space. Because again, if you don't have alcohol in your repertoire, what are you going to do? Like drink fruit shoots and cordial? And all due respect to can of Coke. So being able to we always talk about Chance being like the most inclusive cider in the world. And it's because we're vegan and low calorie and celiac friendly, but also low alc. And it means that whatever your choice is, you can still show up and have a great time with someone, whether you're sober or you're moderating or you're on the booze, but you need someone to drive you home.
Definitely. I'm just going to take a slight sideways move away from cider because I know it's something that you're involved with, but you're involved with on the mental health side. We are hummingbirds.
Oh yeah. Oh, thank you for talking about that.
And it's a bit of obviously non-cider bet, but obviously as it's on your on your list of interests, I thought we'd have a quick sideways chat about that if you are open to that.
Look, and not having any cider on a Tuesday night is a slightly happier place to come up with a founder-led story. But unfortunately, 11 years this Christmas, I got married, and one of my friends took his life just after our wedding. And yeah, just like the funnest, coolest guy in the gang. Like, I don't know if you ever watched The In-Betweeners, but the episode where they smoke weed for the first time. The band they go and watch was my friend's band. Unbelievable band, amazing dude.
Wow.
If you were having a night out and he was on the team sheet, it was going to be a good one. Like, he was a legend.
Yeah.
And cripplingly depressed, but able to disguise it, and no one saw it. And he took his own life because he just didn't have a solution to find a way to find help or talk about the help they needed. And when that happened, we all kind of came out, and some people ran marathons and gave money, and some people did other stuff. And I was like, I know a load of musicians, I'm going to put on a gig. So I met with my friend, and I was like, I've got this idea to raise some money. And he just looked at me and went, aren't you like some like marketing guy? Is that your best idea? And I was like, fair play. So basically I switched into my customer marketing brain and started going, right, well, if we go back to Chance, like, people don't have a non-outsider. How do I give them a non-outsider? I looked at that and went, people can't find mental health first aid training. They can't find education. They can't find suicide prevention. They can't find ways to speak because no one wants to Google this stuff. So I basically set up We Are Hummingbird as a website. And the idea was we'd have all the information on there from the NHS. And it's in a place, so you don't have to go look for it. And because I love music and he was a musician, and his first solo album was called Hummingbird, I went, right, we'll call it Hummingbird, and we'll call it We Are Hummingbird because we're all together. And I just had this idea of, like, if you're trying to talk to someone and you got one person on the stage and you got 2,000 people looking at them, that's the best chance to speak to someone. So the Hummingbird website became this, and then we started to get playlists, so people would give us their top 10 songs, from like Simon Neil to Paramore to Graham Coxon to Sarah and Accounts from Wigan, right? And people would submit their playlist. I think about 150 in total over the years. And people would look at the website to look at the playlist, but then through osmosis would find this information. So that was Hummingbird, and it got bigger. And then one of my friends, Ian, quit his job and became a mental health first aid trainer. So just in case you don't know what it is, it's like a first aid trainer, but for your head. And that's a very, very silly way of explaining it, but it's a 2-day course that teaches people into intervention and understanding of how to speak to people in moments of crisis, but also spot people that might have signs, and we call them stress signatures. The things that I didn't see in my friend Matt, but I would see today because I'm trained. So he came on board, and we started to, he didn't want to call it Ian Hirsch training, so he called it We Are Hummingbird training. And we started to train people. And then we started to go to festivals and have safe spaces and speak to people at festivals. And if you're ever going to have a conversation about mental health, don't do it on a Tuesday in an office. Do it on a Saturday afternoon after a couple of ciders.
Yes.
And people go, oh my God, my friend, or this. And it became this beautiful kind of synergy. Then, like most things, COVID hit, and we weren't able to do the festivals, and we lost a lot of momentum there. But the real thing that was landing with us was, it was becoming more and more prevalent that people were talking about mental health, and there's people doing it much better than us in bigger ways, from Lewis Capaldi to Sam Fender, that we never were able to do. But we thought, if someone gives us £1 million, would we spend it on a big marketing campaign, or would we train people? And that's when we really started to focus on training. So I don't work on it as much anymore because I just don't have time. That's my calendar. But what we do know is that we are the biggest independent first aid training company in the country. We've trained nearly 13,000 people, from the police to the army to the navy to, I always love to say this, to Ann Summers to DPD, and we train still at the moment. So it's this wonderful kind of space that for about £300 or £400 people can get trained, and that will save lives. And that mission continues, and very proud that it's in its 11th year. And a bit like there's parallels with non-alcohol awareness and permission and people feeling okay about it. From when that happened 10 years ago, and people going, and you go, no, he didn't. he took his own life. You don't commit suicide. That education and the people's confidence to talk about mental health to now, where, Lola Young, Sam Fender go, I need to have a break because I'm burning out. It's wonderful to see a world where people are much more confident and comfortable about it. And the more people that can get trained in mental health first aid training, the better. And with Chance, we do as much as we can. We did a donation day a few weeks ago with one of the things we've done. Look, I'm not saying I'm saving the world with what we're doing, but definitely Hummingbird is far more important than my cider, but I do love my cider.
Cool. No, it's fantastic. Thank you for that. Thank you. No, that's phenomenal. Great cause. So back to the cider. So what are the plans? Obviously, you've done phenomenally well up to date. What are the plans, or where do you see things? 1, 3, 5 years. What's the outlook?
Okay, so this year, very much looking to continue the kind of distribution learnings we've had in terms of restaurants and pubs and Michelin-star restaurants, and really finding where we can live in the on-premise and driving that education that, if you've got non-alc beer, you need non-alc cider, and why not have a British one that tastes amazing and is 100% British apples and all that kind of cool stuff.
Definitely.
Pivoting some of our production into kegs, which will help all of our festivals. So we're sponsoring a big festival here in Chester on the Easter weekend. I don't know when this goes out, but tickets will be available. And then we have Diva Fest later on. But having draft is a great moment because there's obviously the fact that you don't want glass in fields, but also holding a pint, watching a band. It's that occasion that you talked about with Lucky Saint. So 100%. Draft's a big play for us. Obviously supermarkets and lots of relationships and conversations about trying to get a really good non-alc cider, because again, go in and look at the non-alc bay and you'll see 20 beers, you'll see wine, you'll see spirits, you'll see Aperol, and it's like, where's the second biggest category in the country? So that's a big focus. And then just generally continuing to kind of really enjoy what we're doing and be a fun brand to work with and try and work in spaces that aren't obvious. So last year we sponsored the Tenement Trail in Glasgow, big rock festival in the city. Not just doing, with all due respect, not just doing like yoga retreats for mummies and daddies, going, where can non-alc drinks be? Are they at raves? Are they at festivals? And just continuing to, really promote the fact that having non-alc is going to get more people into venues and more people to have more time together, and isn't some like scary category to worry about that costs too much and confuses people. If you've got a good range, people will come in to your venue and stay longer. And that's, the thing I always think about is that back when I worked for Guinness, you used to talk about the Guinness drinker, and they were really important, but 1 in 4 people drank Guinness. And if you're I'm a Guinness drinker, you might know one. If the Guinness ain't good, you're not going in that pub. So you lose the full drinkers. And in the food world, when veganism and vegetarianism came along, or didn't come along, but became more prevalent, your vegan friend goes, we're not going in there because they don't do vegan food. Non-alc is that now. So it's really simple. You either cater for that one non-alc drinker or you lose 4. And then the sooner people get that and really trust. And also I think choosing a non-alc brand is like super fun. Like this isn't like a new gin that's like new berry flavor. It's like, this is a whole new category of innovation. People should be excited about going in and discovering it.
Absolutely. And I guess, obviously with promotion of the brand, of the product, but a lot, certainly obvious, but, a large proportion of what you're doing and what you've done is educating the market and awareness that it's there, rather than a new lager that's, like you say, or a different flavored gin. It's, hey, we've got a non-alcoholic cider. It tastes fantastic. It's made in England. Here it is, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that's one of the big things. It's, the education of category development and how to sell things in and how to help people understand where the value is in that comes from my background. And, the more that we can kind of help people on that journey. Look, if they choose us brilliantly, But if they choose something else, all ships are going to rise.
Perfect. Absolutely. And in terms of obviously, if you're going for a million prezzo or obviously bars where it's on stock, can people find and purchase Chance anywhere else? Obviously, in all parts of the country. Is it on the website?
Yeah, on a website, on Amazon, on lots of the non-art specific places. So the likes of the Alcohol-Free Company, Wise Bartender, so and so, places like that. And then hopefully more in some of your more big shops, should we say, in the coming period of time.
Perfect. Fantastic. And then obviously, it's an entrepreneur's podcast, are there any, if you think back on your journey over the last few years and obviously your whole career, are there any tips or advice or things you wish you'd known when you started out? And we always say, every mistake isn't a mistake, it's a learning opportunity. But is there any things that stand out on your journey that you'd say to other people thinking about it?
Oh God, we should start this at the beginning. In fact, without being silly, like if you just Google Chance Cider's TikTok, like it is a year and a half of videos talking about all of these things, warts and all, trying to explain it.
Yep,
but if I was going to give you a top 3, I would say trust yourself. Like, you can get loads of advice, but your gut feel will be the thing that will lead you. So always do that, because the sooner you realize that your experience of what you're trying to do is going to lead you better than asking someone else. That ask founders. If you message a founder or LinkedIn a founder and he doesn't get back to you, there's one or two things. They're either too busy, which happens, or they're not worth speaking to. 95% of founders will see you and go, yeah, I'll give you a chat, because they've been there. And the learnings you can get from this little network of us crazy founders who will try and do it, reach out to them. And equally, if you start to get a bit bigger, ask the favor down. And I speak to lots of young founders or people my age who are young in the journey. So reach out to founders. And the third thing is like start raising money as soon as you can. Because, finding investors, managing investors, having cash flow to grow is by far the biggest time drain you get as you get bigger. So the more that you can kind of build those relationships, I've had investors that have had one call and put money in. I've had investors that have taken a year and a half to come round. So I think make sure that you have an eye on the fact that raising money is going to be the energy and the fuel you need. But get in early and watch the TikToks, watch the TED Talks, watch the YouTubes about what EIS and SCIS means and all those kind of things. Because, understanding your finances and understanding the profit that you make will keep you alive. You'll be able to be born as a brand. Anyone can do it. But yeah, those kind of bits. So definitely reach out to lots of different founders. Definitely make sure you're raising money. But more importantly, just trust your gut. Perfect.
That's amazing. And what we'll do is we'll put the links to the events that you've got coming up. I think that's fantastic. And that sounds an amazing way of obviously looking at your journey on TikTok. But yeah, that's some invaluable advice there. But yeah, really enjoyed the conversation this afternoon, John. And not just saying that because I'm talking to you at the moment, but I mean, I'm glugging this and it's delicious. I mean, it's as I say, I've tried all manner of different ciders, and it's just don't need to preach to the founder, but it's I mean, it's lovely, isn't it?
No, I appreciate that.
I can see why your dad likes it in the mornings. It's as well.
We are available to drink all through the day.
That's perfect, great stuff. Well, thank you ever so much, John. And we'll put all your links, all your social media on the podcast when it comes out. Wishing you all the best, obviously, in the events that are coming up. Look forward to the ever-growing expansion of the brand and Clean Cider, and wish you all the best, and look forward to seeing you flourishing even more in the future.
Thanks, Alex. Brilliant.
All the best. Thanks, John. Take care.
Cheers, mate.
Bye.